Welcome back to the countdown of the best in horror since last October. I'm ML Miller. Sometimes pain, terror, sadness, and depression can be so powerful that it seeps into the walls that house those afflicted with those feelings. Here's a pair of flicks that feature homes that house sheer terror. This is ML Miller Frights' Best in Horror Countdown 2020-2021. Number 19. Number 19 is The Night House, released August 20th, 2021. It's still in select theaters, but it might be also on demand and digital download. It's directed by David Bruckner and written by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski. Beth, played by Godzilla vs. Kong's Rebecca Hall, is devastated after her husband Owen kills himself. While leaving a note, it is completely vague and leaves no real reason why he decided to end his life. This leaves Beth alone and distraught in the house they built, attempting to put the pieces of her life back together. But Owen might not be totally gone, as it seems his spirit has unfinished business with Beth, leaving Beth to figure out the mystery of her husband's death and the dark forces that forced him to commit suicide. The Night House is a dark tale about coming to grips with the death of a loved one. While one might never understand the torment one who commits suicide has gone through, that doesn't stop those who have survived from attempting to understand the reason why the act is done. Because this is such a common way of thinking and feeling, The Night House is an easy film to get caught up with. Most of us know about death, and if you don't, count your lucky stars. And most of us are often tortured by unanswered questions that most likely will never be answered when a loved one is taken away too soon. Without the context comparing the story to other films, and without the supernatural elements, this is a story about coping with loss. The universal fear of death, which is basically the core of all horror movies. Simply at face value, The Night House handles the theme of coping with death in a sophisticated, mature, and complex way, making it a cut above most horror movies out there, which rely on the coolness of the kill and how much grue can be splattered about. It depicts a woman attempting to make sense of the unsensible, a suicide that seemingly came out of the blue. This works because Rebecca Hall is a phenomenal actress. We see her attempt to cope with the loss through sarcasm, humor, sadness, self-loathing, suspicion, anger, and finally acceptance. Hall does a phenomenal job of bringing all of these complex emotions to life, playing these emotions with a layer of personality that shows the character's strengths and weaknesses. Beth is a strong woman and trying to power through this massive loss, but at the same time, Hall allows us to see Beth's vulnerable side, collapsing into drinking, tears, and sorrow in a way that is fearless, as it doesn't really put her in a favorable light. The thing is, sometimes I view a film in a jaded and sarcastic manner. I've seen too many films not to. So when I see melodrama, sometimes I can't help but get snarky. I can't help but label the film as a cut-and-dry Hallmark movie of the week about the loss of a husband and one woman's struggle to get her groove back. On the surface, that's what The Night House is. Beth desperately wants to understand why her husband chose suicide over talking it out with her, and as the story goes on, even more desperately wants to move on, despite her own curiosity and stubbornness forcing herself to dig deeper into her husband's secret life. If you just want to experience The Night House on a melodramatic level, there's plenty of soap operatics to chew on. The ending especially teeters on being extremely hokey. Still, after looking at a few film analyses of The Night House and hearing what director David Bruckner himself has said about the film, I found myself appreciating it a whole lot more. If you squint at The Night House, you'll see that basically it's a more emotional and mainstream retelling of Hellraiser. I can't claim to be the first to notice this, but once I was made aware of the similarities, I couldn't help but see the entire film in a new light. As with Hellraiser, we have a character that unlocks a door into another type of world, a world that is darker, twisted, and more perverse than the one his loved ones know of. Once that person is seduced by these darker forces, he's pulled into this world, leaving his loved ones to investigate and pulled into that void with him. Sure, there are no Cenobites, there's no box, but there is an intricately constructed house that serves as a portal into a much darker realm and a darker side, kept secret from our protagonist, who sees their lost loved one as one person when actually he is something completely foreign, twisted, and evil. I understand that's a vague comparison, especially if you haven't seen The Night House yet, but if and when you do see the film, I dare you not to think of how similar in story structure and theme it is with Barker's classic film Hellraiser. The Night House is full of strong mood, permeable atmosphere, solid performances, and nerve-shredding tension. Rebecca Hall carries the entire film on her back with her performance as someone pushed to the very edge of sanity while attempting to understand that which can't be understood. While Bruckner isn't above tossing in a jump scare or three, he fills the entire film with a dark and foreboding fog of morose tension and heavy emotion, delivering a horror film that is a cut above what is usually put out in major releases. This is hopeful, as I feel Bruckner has what it takes to blend popular horror tropes with depthy, emotional, and philosophical terrors. While one might view The Night House as a horror drama, emphasis on the drama, there are underlying tones that will definitely haunt you long after. It did for me, and because of it, my appreciation for this subtle yet powerful horror film grows the more I think about it. For today's bonus review, I take you to The Funeral Home, aka La Funeraria. It was released February 2nd, 2021. It's available on demand and digital download from Uncork'd Entertainment, and it's also available on Tubi. It's directed and written by Mauro, Iván, Ojeda. When you own a funeral home, you've got to deal with ghosts. It comes with the territory, I guess. Bernardo, played by Luis Machin, owns the funeral home and has recently married his new wife, Estela, played by Celeste Guerrez. Estela's daughter, Irina, played by Camila Vaccarini, refuses to accept Bernardo as her new father and isn't too happy about her mother's marriage to him either. This highly dysfunctional family aesthetic makes for some bad vibes in a place already haunted by spirits. Though a local mystic has blessed the house to rid the house of most of the evil spirits, the funeral home has quite a few left over, and there are specific rules that must be followed so as not to disturb them. Certain rooms are never to be entered, and others, like the bathroom, must not be opened at night. As the hauntings escalate, the mystic is called back to uncover misdeeds of the family that have opened them up for an attack by evil forces from the other side. There have been quite a few Insidious-style haunted house films coming from outside of the U.S. borders these days, such as His House and 32 Malasana Street. But for some reason, given that the actors and the production lack that shiny Hollywood sheen, the haunts feel so much more effective and authentic. Argentina's The Funeral Home is another strong effort in this ever-growing subgenre of horror. The level of production that went into The Funeral Home is impressive. The film begins with some long tracking shots that really do a great job of establishing the dark and foreboding mood. It's also highlighting the wonderful attention to detail this film has, from the garden planted in caskets in the backyard to the maze of hallways with messages on the door to never open after dark. There are quite a few of these shots that really up the intensity level and altogether ooky feel. It also makes for a great roadmap for the action that's about to unfold within the house. Adding to the horrifying ambiance is a wonderful score that incorporates unconventional sounds and screeching string instruments. This is a film that looks and sounds terrifying. I found the acting to be one of the main weaknesses of The Funeral Home. Machin feels miscast as the mopey and pushover husband Bernardo. He just doesn't have a strong presence. In fact, none of the three members of the family are that likable, as they all turn out to be pretty horrible to one another. It makes it really hard to get 100% invested in their plight, and kind of gave me a morbid sense of joy when they are tormented by the spirits. The Funeral Home also has a broad mix of special effects. Some are CG bursts of light and invisible footfalls. There are also some nice practical effects for the evil spirits that are equally impressive. I also love the fact that this one isn't afraid to do simple DIY effects. One scene has a person trapped in a porta potty, and to communicate that it's shaking, they do the old Star Trek move where the actor acts off balance and the cameraman shakes the camera. The details of these haunts are nice and original. Bernardo has a relationship with past lovers who have passed away that gets rather weird and kinky. Estrella and Irina are both haunted by their husband and father, respectively. The other ghosts are downright terrifying, especially the spirit trapped in the padlocked room, which rattles the chains at night. And there's a weird attention to bathrooms here. I counted 4 bathroom scenes, which feels like 2 or 3 too many. The flip-flop ending might be a deal-breaker for some, depending on whether or not you like optimistic or nihilistic endings, but I'm kind of glad they went for it, despite some of the schmaltziness. There's enough good in The Funeral Home to ignore the not-so-good. A lot of work was put into this film, and it shows as it offers up solid and original scares from beginning to end. Come back tomorrow for the next installment to the Best in Horror Countdown 2021. If you hit all the pertinent bells and whistles down below, you're sure never to miss it. See you then.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're